Hey guys, it's Kenny. I am back and welcome to episode 2 of the 5-Minute Bible. Now, just to remind you, what we're doing here is the 5-Minute Bible is you joining me on my journey to go through the Bible 5 minutes at a time. The goal of which is to put together all the stories of the Scripture chronologically in a way that we understand. Now, I believe that's a great thing and a necessary thing to our growth as believers, or for our understanding of the Bible if we're not a believer. Because if you don't understand something in chronological order, you don't understand it at all. You can't do math and just throw the numbers in however you want in a complex problem. And this is a complex story. So we're going to do this in order. Now, in order to do this, we set up we're using a particular tool, a mental tool, and that is the brain remembers things by attaching new memories to old memories. And so we're going to create a word that covers a period of time in the Bible, and we're going to learn that word. And then once we've learned that word, we'll add on more episodes or more stories from that particular time period onto that word. So when you think of that word, you'll think of all those episodes, and the words being in order, the whole thing will come into order for you. And so that's our 5-Minute Bible methodology, and I'm going to show you it today right here on this wall here. So let's start off right here. Oh. All right, we use this wave as our Old Testament tool. And the reason we use the wave is because it represents high and low points in the relationship between God and man, and specifically between God and the Israelites as we move forward. And it's just an easy way to remember the time periods, and then attach the stories to those time periods. So here we go. Let's start off and let's see how the Old Testament unfolds. And by the way, you'll have the Old Testament in 5 minutes. This is the Old Testament in 5 minutes today. So here we go. We start off with the creation. God creates man, and that's the Garden of Eden story and several others, the story of creation. But then there's the fall of man. Man falls. There's several stories in there. Once man falls, then God comes in and he makes a covenant. A covenant is a special promise that can't be broken. And we'll get into more detail on that. Now, let me pause for just a minute, and I want to explain to you that each of these words I put up here, in later episodes, we're going to be unpacking those in detail so that you know what stories go under there, what books belong in there, and so it all comes together. The purpose of today's episode is to give you the big picture of the Old Testament and how it unfolded. So after creation and the fall, God makes a covenant with Abraham that he will make him great and he'll be a great nation. But unfortunately, eventually, the Israelites are put into slavery in Egypt. But God comes to the rescue, and we have the Exodus, and he gives them freedom again. But they rebel against God in spite of the freedom they've just received, and they wind up in the wilderness, wandering around for 40 years, and before they can enter the next part, Promised Land. Before they can take the land that God promised, they had to wander in the wilderness. Now, once they've taken the Promised Land, then we've got an interesting period called Judges, where Israel is ruled not by kings, but by individual leaders that God raised up in times of trouble to take care of the Israelites and to organize them to defend themselves. Now, after the period of Judges, we have a period of kingdom. Now, I want to take a moment to say, those of you who are watching this who are Bible scholars, who are well-studied, you may say, well, but the period of Judges had some great judges. There were some people who did great things. Why is that a low point? Well, it's a low point because it was chaotic, and we'll get to that when we get here. Each of these doesn't mean there wasn't anything good that happened during that times, but it is a generalization as a high and low to help us to remember the unfolding of the story. So after kingdom, unfortunately, the Jewish kingdom split into 2 groups, and now we have division between the kingdom. And then one group, the nation of Israel, was conquered and carried off into slavery, and we have the nation of Judah is all that's left. Now we come back here, and we're going to do just a little bit more here. After Judah, we have a period of exile in Babylon, where the Jews are carried off to Babylon. It's the second time that's happened to them in their history of Babylon, and here you have the slavery here. But then after the exile, you've got return, where they go and rebuild, where they go back and begin to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. Now, after the return, though, there is a final period. There's a final period that we'll have to call hardness. Hardness is the word. Forgive me there for a second, but hardness. Now, the period of hardness is a time. I got one too many here. The period of hardness is a time frame where the Israelites, the Jews, hardened their hearts to the voice of God, and that introduced a 400-year period. 400-year period without a prophet in Israel, up until the time when, with the coming of Jesus in the New Testament. And we're going to save Jesus and the New Testament to a later episode. Our first goal is let's get this in order. There's so many stories and so many things to deal with here. It's just unbelievable. But we're going to come back in our next episode, and we're going to start unpacking in our next episode creation. Then after that, we'll unpack fall, and then we'll unpack covenant, and so on until we've got the Bible in 5 minutes. So welcome to the Bible in 5 minutes, or the 5-Minute Bible, and continue on the journey. I'll see you in episode 3.